Can you all hear me? Yes. So I don't need to shout too much. It's amazing to be here and to see this kaleidoscope of beautiful brown faces in the room. It's not often that this happens, isn't it? Right? So it is amazing to just see humanity on show in all its colors, as it should be, right? So thank you, Yola, for inviting me to have a conversation with you all today. I am, as you had, Dean for, we don't say equality anymore, we moved on to equity, diversity and inclusion. Do you know why equity? Does anyone know? Can you herald a guess? Why not equality? Come on, someone must know this. Yes?
I think you can't achieve equality without equity. Everyone needs to be given what they need to achieve equality of something, everyone given the exact same thing.
Okay, so you think one is a means to the other. Yeah. Equity is a means to equality. Okay, somebody else had their hand up.
Not all needs are equal, so maybe we need to be looking at the outcome, which will be then the equity, I would argue.
Okay, so quite similar ideas. Yes, to a degree you're both right. But on the other hand, think about what equality asks us to do. It asks us to treat everybody the same. Yes? So I have a friend who's a school teacher, and she says that one time one of her children fell down and had his knee, and she put a little plaster on the knee. And then the other kids were like, I want one too. And so she was explaining why this child can have the plaster and not every other child needed one. So she did this little experiment. I'm not quite sure exactly how she did it, but she had the little kids coming up to her saying where it hurts. Oh, my hand hurts. I think I had my elbow miss. All right, I know what I'll do. I'll put a plaster on your knee. Because that's equal, right? We are putting plasters on everybody's knee, regardless of where you've been hurt. And so the question was, and they said, but I don't need it there. And that's exactly it. The thing is opportunity. We don't all have the same opportunities. And sometimes some people must have to need to give up their privilege so that others can have. So I don't know whether you've seen that graphic of 3 people looking over the fence, you know that one? One is short, one is, yeah, exactly. And the reality is that the person who's got all the boxes and happens to be very tall at the same time will need to let go of some of those boxes so the person who cannot see over the fence can see. That makes some people uncomfortable because they think, I have to give up my privilege? Nobody likes to give up their privilege. But the reality is he still can see the game anyway. So even without those extra 2 boxes or 3 boxes that this person had, they can still see the game. And now it makes for a richer interaction because the 3 of them can have a conversation about what they are seeing. Maybe to a point where they even ask themselves, why do we have a fence? Shall we take that away? Maybe we don't need a fence, right? And they can start to co-create a new reality. So we are all here today talking about our experiences in Haiti, thinking about how we have come to learn, to fulfill our purpose, to have an opportunity to make a meaningful contribution, right? Everybody in this room has come into this space, into this moment with a dream and a desire to be more and to do more. But you find yourself within a context, a space that was not created for you or with you in mind. So you're literally being shoehorned into it. And it doesn't want to yield, right? And so what happens? A lot of people leave. A lot of people say, it's not worth it. It's too much. It's too hard. And I can't blame them, right? But our call is one where we have to be trailblazers. I know we talk about role models, right? And we want role models. We want people who look like us for us to look up to. But we can't, our blackness, our brownness cannot be the only thing we bring into our room. There must be more. We must be more. And we are more. But we live in a society that sees us as that first and foremost, and based on that perception of us, decides what permissions they give us and what permissions they deny us, right? So I came from Africa, 2005. Never had to think of myself as black. I was just Kendi. I was Meru, Maasai, Samburu. I was Kenyan. Maybe occasionally I thought of myself as African. But, you know, then I was all those other things, a daughter, a mother, a woman, and whatever. Then I come here, and they give me a form. Say, now, you need to declare your ethnicity. Are you black? If so, which black are you? Black Caribbean, black this, black that. And I had this moment of, I do not know what this means. I can see the words, but I mean, I grew up seeing what, the group of people from the African diaspora who we called Black Americans, now African Americans, right? So I was familiar with that. And they were the other, they were different from me growing up. And then suddenly, I have that same word being used to describe me, and I have absolutely no clue what that word means. And at first, I rejected it. I said, this isn't me. I'm not a color. What does that mean? Black what? I don't know. And for a long time, I struggled with it because I didn't feel it adequately captured the essence of who I was or who I wanted to be. But with time, I realized whether I accepted it or not, this is how the society in which I now lived saw me, right? And so I had to really re-educate myself about what is it to be black, and then own it for me and make it meaningful for me. Start to find a brotherhood, a sisterhood, a kinhood with other people who look like me. Start to understand the shared trauma, shared experiences, and lived experiences that we have. Start to think about the fact that we are all hope personified, that we have all come from generations of people who've had to survive and thrive in spite of all the things that have happened to them, from colonialism, the colonial project, which was very successful, hence why we have neo-colonial governments back in Africa. Let me not go into that. Slavery and continued exploitation of brown and black bodies. So we are here anyway, in spite of all of that, right? And so then when I walk into a room, I know, and especially now in the spaces where I see myself a lot, find myself a lot thanks to Iola, I tend to be more or less the only one who looks like me. And I have to be hyper aware that I do not want that physicality to be the only thing or the only reason I am in that space. There has to be more. And sometimes it's difficult to convince those in those spaces that there is more to me. Otherwise, I become the person who talks about race or, EDI, and not EDI generally, but race specifically. And that's the only thing that they see in me. And I refuse that. I totally refuse that. So going back to Trailblazers. So what I was saying is that when you have role models, you want to have role models or you want to become or to create a pool of a variety of role models so that young people, regardless of their race, creed, or otherwise, can look up to you for something inside within you that you have to offer, other than the comfort, other than the comfort of seeing somebody who looks like them. But there aren't enough of us in those spaces now for us to have that variety, right? Some of you will have to step into those spaces as the first one, as the only one. You have to be trailblazers. And I remember my father saying to me, and I said, oh, Dad, we are having a hard time in England because there aren't enough role models of color. My father said, I grew up in a village in Africa, right? The first time I went to school, I had never even heard of that concept. I didn't even know something called school existed until the day my father took me barefoot, little pair of shorts, khaki shorts and khaki shirt, and took me to this space and said, you're here to learn, in a way that was completely unfamiliar to me. And he aced it. And then he was told, okay, now you need to go to intermediate school. Again, he had never heard of intermediate school, but he went. And then someone says you now need to go to high school. And then someone said you need to go to university. And the first time he went to university was the first time he left his village to go to the city. He'd never been there before, right? He had to learn how to use a knife and fork because that's not what he grew up using. Now, my father is now a retired university professor, history professor, having grown up with dyslexia he didn't know that he had, yet he studied literature in spite of it, and he studied history in spite of it. So he became a trailblazer. But what I love about my father and what I learned from him as well is that when you go up the ladder, you don't take the ladder up with you. You put your hand down and bring others up with you. And so there are many people who've gone to school because of my father. And my father is a feminist, and he loves educating women in particular. So I am here to encourage you to say, listen, the path you've chosen is not an easy one. And for some of you, for your own mental health and self-preservation, you may choose to step away from this path, and you should not feel guilty about that. You should, you should just go and thrive and be wherever you go, right? But for those of you who will stay, you will need each other. Because now we've been talking about, 2 minutes, now we've been talking about self-care, because everything is about well-being now, right? And you hear all this talk about self-care, about how we must look after ourselves. But really, in the communities and the cultures that I see represented, for most of you represented in this room, we know that we come as a collective, right? So it is not about self-care. That's not where your healing shall come from. It is in community care. You should have or start to create or find ways of creating communities of care so that no one needs to escape those spaces, because they can find something to heal and to fulfill them in those spaces. They do not have to leave. So that's a challenge that I will leave with you. How are you looking after each other, taking care of each other, looking for healing as communities? Because I can tell you, the spaces that we occupy are ill. They are sick. They are, somebody whose name I have written, and I'm not going to try and look now, talked about tyranny. And she was saying that the way, what she sees the state as, it's a tyrannic place. And so a tyrannic place cannot heal you. So this space will not heal you. Your help will not come from the structures that are in the policies that exist. This space does not have the power to heal you. The power to heal has to come from within. Then once you find your way of healing, 5 minutes, 2 minutes, which is it?
1 minute.
Okay, it's coming to an end. So what do you find? And basically, and I shall find that actually it is Dion Brand, Writing Against Tyranny and Toward Liberation. She says she doesn't believe in justice. She doesn't believe in justice because the spaces we occupied are not able to give us justice. So what we want is liberation, but that liberation must come with true understanding of oneself and a true sharing and caring for each other in ways that collectively you can find healing. And then and only then will you be strong enough to be able to say, this space where I need to bring the structures down, where transformation must come, so that those who come after me don't need to do all the work that I have done. Only then will you be able to find the strength to do that collectively and to stay at it until it makes a significant difference. But let me tell you, even if you occupy a space and just are thoroughly good at what you do, that space will never be the same again. Transformation will occur just because you are there. So don't seek necessarily to have grand, gestures of stuff that you've done. Sometimes it's in the small things. It's in the small things, but it makes a difference, okay? So thank you very much.